Everybody knows the sneakers app. Everybody knows resale. But not everyone knows where this all started. Eastbay was the blueprint. In this interview, I sit down with founders Rick and Art to talk how they went from driving school to school selling shoes to building one of the most influential brands in sneaker history. We get into access, demand, data, and the moment sneakers became a part of a person's identity. If you love sneakers or business, you're gonna love this interview with Art and Rick. Let's run it. So you guys were born in the same hospital, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Days apart.
Things were very quiet for the first day, and then somebody was putting the bassinet next to me, according to our parents.
I wouldn't have cried had he not thrown his bottle over his bassinet and hit me in the head.
But, you know, I think you ended the chapter very well saying that, you know, our parents separated us because they wanted to go home. But it wasn't long. You guys were back together. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Let's set the stage of where you grew up and how things worked in those early days before you guys went off into college.
Wow. Well, as you said, we were born 2 days apart, and happenstance has been a big part of our success with Eastbay. Good things have just happened to us. And it was just happenstance that after our parents separated, a couple of years later, they moved 3 houses apart. And so we grew up 3 houses apart on a busy road that turned into from a local road to a highway. And on the north and the south side of that road were 2 nice hills. So we were kind of in a valley, isolated from other people. We were the 2 youngest kids on the block, 2 youngest kids on the 3-block area. And so we really had to learn how to fend for ourselves. I mean, obviously, when we were 1, 2, or 3, it didn't matter. But as we were growing up, you know, we were playing with kids 4 or 5 years older than we were. And we got to learn some things a little sooner than other kids. But one of the things I think was perseverance. We just learned that you keep showing up all the time. And eventually they get sick of beating you up. So, and then they leave you alone. So it worked out pretty well.
And Rick could run fast. He'd get away.
I read
we had, you know, probably what you're just a perfect childhood, just, you know, in the valley, and parents would kick you out as soon as the sun came up, and you better be back in when the street lights go on. That was it.
Tell me about those go-kart races, though. You guys had talking about working with older kids and playing with older kids. Tell me about some of those times when you had to put those together.
Well, you know, and where we lived in our block, where there just wasn't a lot of money, so everybody was always picking something up from the garbage or throwing something away to fix something. So there's always wheels. There were always broken roller skates. There was always shipping. What were the peaches used to come in these wooden boxes. So on these wooden crates. So there was always wood around. There was always these old wheels around, and we lived like we said, on the hills. And so it was easy to find a place to go down fast if you wanted to. You just had to figure out how to take your turn, and all the older kids got the better parts because they were a little stronger, faster, and could push us away a little more. So we got left with whatever we could find to make it work. We had one go-kart that we had a roller skate on the left side, and like a what was it? It was like a shopping. It was about 4 times bigger than the roller skate. So our go-kart was slanted to begin with. We were great turning left, but turning right was a real challenge.
The good thing about that, if we can add one thing, is that because we were so bad at building things, and we still are, the older kids had really good go-karts with good wheels. So we came down the hill, which you'd have to cross Highway 52 to win, which not the smartest thing in the world. So our carts never made it back to Highway 52. So that was the only good thing. That was at the bottom of the hill.
And we had to use our feet for brakes, so we learned early on the importance of early obsolescence.
Yeah.
So when athletic shoes started coming out lighter and faster, we knew they were going to wear out sooner. So we thought maybe we have hope here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and as you guys got a little bit older, probably past maybe some of the go-kart stage, you both were involved in sports early on in your childhood. You guys want to tell me about that, and what did you enjoy about the sports that you were playing as young men?
I think growing up, we played everything. We were playing football and baseball and everything. We played with the older kids. We just had, it was just fun. And especially younger days, and I'm sure you have the same feeling for some different, some little older players, and then it keeps going. We just had this admiration for all these Major League Baseball players, and I remember Mickey Mantle and all that back in the day, and then later it was Hank Aaron and all these things, and yeah, that's what you remember. You remember playing ball and having a good time, and you'd say like you'd make like you were one of your heroes playing all the time.
Art was the only kid I think in our town that was a New York Yankees fan. His dad, who was a really good baseball player, his dad would listen to the Yankees, and so Art got to be a really good Yankees fan, and has always been. So it was kind of fun to bring that big town into this little town of ours, because that was one of the cool things where we lived. Wausau was really a big sports town. It was the center of the state, and all the small towns around it would come to Wausau to shop and find things that they couldn't find in the smaller towns than where they lived. So Wausau really became a great sports center for the middle of the state. And so the high school kids were our early heroes. And then as we got older and could realize there was pro sports and everything, obviously the pros became more important. But we grew up idolizing the juniors and seniors in high school, because we could go to the Friday night football games and sit on the hill and try not to get in fights and watch these guys beat virtually everybody they played. And we were always ranked in the top 2 or 3, and Wausau was always ranked in the top 2 or 3 in the state, even over the bigger towns of Milwaukee and Madison or Green Bay or whatever. So it was a great sports town to grow up in.
That and something that is probably not easy for some of the Instagram followers that see me today, that are my kids' age and younger, don't realize that how much those local athletes really inspired all of us. And whether when they went to a college at any level was an amazing feat. And me as an athlete always dreamed of doing that when we played. So I can see why you were inspired. I want to ask, you mentioned Mickey Mantle, and I think there's something that you leverage throughout the whole book in the way that you guys work together and interact together through all the years. And I think it started young around Mickey Mantle. Can you share that story?
So, we would always go get baseball cards, and that's that when I looked at one of your podcasts, and you talk about your Michael Jordan thing.
Yeah.
And getting that Jordan sheet, how cool that was. The Mickey Mantle. So we'd always get all these different cards, and all the older kids would try and get our good cards away from us. They give us I'll give you 10 of these guys you never heard of for, Mickey Mantle or something like that. So they tried to do that with Rick. I said, he's my hero. You can't trade it, Rick. You can't trade it. So eventually I traded for it I gave him some good cards, Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews and that, because we were probably more Braves fans then.
Yeah, but you autographed them, so they were useless.
But I still have that Mickey Mantle card. So unfortunately, it wasn't, I think it was about 1960, 59 or 60. So, yeah, so I wouldn't let Rick trade it. So,
hey,
and that was one of the advantages with, Art's dad was such a good baseball player that Art really knew baseball and really understood baseball. And my dad didn't, and I was never a good baseball player. And so he knew what he was doing. It was pretty cool. Some of that big city sneaking into that small town, it always helps.
And Art, did you tell that story in the book? Is that something you realized, like as you were reflecting and writing that story and talking about your relationship, or did that pop into your mind during some of those times when you had to talk things out between each other?
Boy, we've always done that. You know, it's one thing writing the book, you think about all those things. Rick, yeah, we always kind of deferred to each other. You know, I think we've always kind of looked to each other for advice. And oftentimes I go with what Rick says, even over what I believe many times. And so it was one of those things where Rick actually listened to me. He doesn't often, but he did. And I think we've done pretty well. Yeah, we've done pretty well over the years doing that.
You know, we've always started, if Art had an idea or if I had an idea, each of us would at least say 50%, yeah, that's the right idea. Whoever had, you know, so if Art had an idea and said we should do this, 50% of me would say, yep, we should do that. And then we would talk it out, and vice versa. If I had an idea, Art was 50% in. And so we talk about happenstance, where after we left the hospital the first time, getting back together, we almost didn't do this business because I told Art the story that what we were looking at doing, and he really had started to build a good life for himself, coaching and teaching, and so he wasn't quite sure. So it kind of dampened my interest down just a little bit. And then when we finally found a beacon of light that might get us to the point of opening up, I called Art because I said I didn't really want to do this unless you wanted to do this with me. And he said, I just can't come today. I had too many personal days and I can't take any more days off. And so we were walking into the store that we were going to meet a gentleman who was going to help us get going. And here his car is parked out in the middle, parked right in front. You know, he always gets the great parking spots. His car was parked right in front of the store. And I just knew for certain as we walked in that this could really happen. So
it's a great story.
My wife's fault.
Can be, exactly.
You were talking about your wife. Like my wife Barb said, we should do this.
Yep.
So.
I wanted to ask you about that. I think you both give credit to Barbara and Susie throughout the book, and I feel that, and I felt it in the book, and I think that what a scary time for you, Art. I guess you had a job, you had a life going, and
a successful coach as well.
Well, I mean, it had to be scarier for Rick because I mean, you gave up being a professional college student. You know, who would want to do that?
I know. I wish I was on a 6-year plan.
Yeah. So I mean, no, it was just you know, sometimes you just hit the right time, right place, which I think Eastbay did all the time, and it was just the right time for us to. We were thinking about moving north again and looking for jobs up there, and Rick came up with the idea. Says, "Let's go with Rick." Perfect.
And Rick, I'm, you know, you got this idea. Really, you were kind of inspired yourself, I think, during that time. And I think it was an NAIA trip. You had been looking for some track spikes, and I think you eventually found them. But I think you really had an epiphany almost of sorts when you went to a tournament. Can you tell me about that story and how that played out?
Well, I finished my track career at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, and so one of the guys who started the business with us, Don Trebatuski, and I were kind of the coach let us keep running with him, with the guys, because they knew that he would like to have some people out there that he could talk to about who's doing what and how well they're doing and who's hurt. And anyway,
Ricky the rabbit.
Yeah, sure. So we got one of the other guys who was going to start the business with us, Dave Elger, was a marathon runner who we ran with. He qualified for nationals, so coach let us go down to Arkadelphia, Arkansas, with him. And we had, even before that, we had always talked about that it was just so hard to get shoes in our area. We always almost to get decent track spikes, you had to drive down to Madison, which is a 2-hour drive to get anything, because obviously the university's down there, so they had better selection. But when we got to Arkadelphia, it was just amazing the kind of shoes that we thought we saw in Madison that we could get. There was different colors, different shapes, different models. It was just kind of like I don't even know what to call it, but it was just a breath of fresh air almost. It's like, wow, you could really look good in some of these shoes, or you could really run fast in some of these shoes. So it just started there and came back and tried to find a way to make it happen.
I like that, and I think you both came together understanding after seeing that access question kind of answered, like access to people in small rural areas maybe that don't have access. I think that's how you guys started to think about potentially taking a variety of shoes and getting them to people that may not be able to get them. Can you tell me about, I don't even know if you guys thought it was a business at that time, but tell me kind of the how that got started, because I mean, you guys were literally driving around and doing clinics, I think, at high schools.
Speeding, not driving, Steve, speeding around, trying to hit 3 to 4 high schools in a day.
So that was our mission all the time, was to get products that Rick had saw. I mean, I'd coach and we're giving out red Converse All-Stars for running track, things like that, you know. And Rick saw these shoes, says, you know, people should have these. And that was our mission the whole time, was bring the athlete, students, the best possible product for their sport, and just the best possible product they could find. And you couldn't find it nearby, especially small towns. And that was our goal. That's all we started out to do. We did it first around Wausau, northern Wisconsin, and then branched out from there to Wisconsin, and then I cataloged to other states. And that was always the mission of Eastbay.
You know, and we started with only $4,000. The original idea was to go to a school, fit them, show them the variety, but fit them, and then order shoes and then deliver them back to the schools. Well, we learned in the first school visit we made, these kids don't want to wait, number one. Number two, they want to take them home right away. And so we learned that, and we decided to do that because we knew running in college, nobody really cared about us. You had to go to the retailer. And we thought that our angle would be going directly first to the kids, and hopefully put on the clinic, sell maybe half of the kids, and hope that the other half would come into our store then, you know, to get shoes if they weren't ready to decide that day. But the whole idea was to not only give them the best shoes, but to go directly to them first, rather than being like a regular retailer that waits for someone to come to you. So,
which we learned a lot from them.
Yeah, and learned probably better than retailers, as your success showed later.
Maybe a little faster.
Yeah, absolutely. You also faced your first, and I think you started, Rick, going down this path that people wanted them now. And I think you were going to show them more as samples and then place orders to fulfill them. And so that became a theme in your book. I think that you faced through the whole thing is balancing the inventory and receipts and sales throughout your entire career. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, how did you initially, when they wanted to buy your inventory, but you guys may have been limited in the beginning?
I don't want to make this too long, but our first school that we went to was the school that we were running at, the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. And Rick Witt, the head coach, allowed us to come in. And so we had been talking to these kids for the last 2 or 3 years since we had been in Arkadelphia about, we want to start this thing. How do we do it? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And we were surprised when we went back to the college in that first trip thinking just to take orders. Even these kids who had heard our ideas for 2-3 years before that, once they saw the shoes, everything they just went wild and went to try everything on and test run it and do everything else. And we learned immediately that we had to have inventory. And so we decided after that first clinic that we wouldn't do any more clinics until the high school season started, because we knew we had to start finding ways to collect some inventory. And we were lucky enough to use the gentleman that got us, who owned the only running store in Milwaukee called Eastbay Running Store. He allowed us to buy shoes from him at cost. And so as soon as we could get some money and started, I think my folks gave us a little $500 loan or whatever. We started building our inventory and slowly but surely grew it to be fairly large.
So Steve, you talked about getting the catalog in '86 and seeing the Jordans the first time, and you were from Tulsa, and then you saw it in Kansas City. So we grew. We knew from that first time Rick did the thing at University of Stevens Point that we needed the shoes. So we grew. We would send the catalogs out every year. We'd add a few more states. So when we started cataloging, we reached the end of what we could travel with our old crappy vans around. No one nowadays they went like you're near a school in those vans with the young guys. So we started sending a catalog out, and we'd go to a few states. And when they wrote a few states more, we'd only send to the coaches the first time through. And everything grew from there. The coaches would give it to kids. The kids would see it. Eventually we went from 0 kids. There was no list of kids to 5 million by the time we left. But that's how we grew it. And we knew we had to grow slow, because if we sent it out, we wanted to have it in stock. So nothing would feel worse than somebody calling for something they really wanted and you didn't have it. And that's how we did it. And that's how you saw it too. You saw it from a coach in Kansas City, and they'd probably just gotten that catalog. And the next year, I think we went to Oklahoma after that, and those surrounding states.
Yeah. Well, and at that time, even the footwear industry was growing up. I mean, they were learning how to work. Nowadays, there's virtually no backup inventory. At that time, they were all competing against each other to open more and more retail stores to get more and more penetration. And they knew they had to have backup inventory to help these places get going. So we were fortunate that Art and I kind of devised a way to use the Nikes and the Adidas of the world's inventory in their 30-day dating to forecast what we would need for the next week or two and order it, and then hopefully get enough sales to pay for it at the end of 30 days. And just kept, we would reorder almost every day something. You really had to work at it. But that was the golden years of the athletic industry having backup inventory. Couldn't work today. Couldn't happen today. You'd have to buy everything up front.
Yeah, it was. I'm fascinated as a longtime retailer about the inventory terms and invoicing and payment, and how turning those can actually end up being a very profitable enterprise, but it can also be very risky.
Oh yeah. We went from Rick's basement to his mom's basement for our inventory to a 1 million square foot warehouse at the end. So
it's fascinating.
It took a long time to get there, obviously.
Not that long though. It was, I mean, it was a long time. I think, we're talking what, 15, 16 years,
20 years for us, and another. Yeah.
So it was a long time, but it was always growing, and always you guys were always looking for what you could do more. I think one thing I wanted to, it wasn't the fact that you started just a catalog. Like Sears or someone else at that time, you guys put thought into how you wanted to show the product and how you wanted to how you wanted to do that. Can you talk a little bit about that? And Rick, I think you had a lot of enthusiasm about this.
Well, we started with so little cash. We were capital shy our whole careers. So we knew that we couldn't. We knew that we had to be really selective on what we showed. We had I think our first black and white little 4-page fold down had 52 shoes in it, and we only showed 23. So because we couldn't put more pictures on the page without at least listing all the other shoes. So we were, again, this is the golden years of the athletic industry, we think, and things without the internet grew slowly. So it wasn't like we were super rushed because there was, we went from 0 to 5 million kids knocking on our door. It took a long time to build that, as Art said. And so we were lucky enough to be there at the right time that you could grow a catalog slowly and grow your distribution slowly. And you just try to marry those things, and you try to pick the best products that you have based upon what the kids in school are telling you, and based upon our gut instincts of which shoes we should show and which shoes we don't have to show. I mean, you wouldn't have to show an Air Jordan. You could just put AJ or Air Jordan in, and people would be calling like crazy. But certain other shoes you have to show because they have features that kids don't know about, and they're, there would be a good shoe if you wanted to have it.
Rick is so modest.
He is modest.
He was the one that came up with my favorite catalog cover behind me, the Dream Big. He put so much thought and energy along with the rest of the team. That they would just come up with ideas first, and the first catalogs were pretty much just showing product and everything. But by 90, we were showing, by the late 80s, we had much larger catalogs, and it became much more thoughtful. A lot of write-ups around it, a lot of write-ups around the players and everything. It became more of a feeling. And I think Rick was always a dreamer. He would always dream those things up. And I was the doer type person. So Rick would dream up all the ideas and make sure everything was just perfect. I'd make sure it got done by the right date. We'd move on to the next one.
Well, and you got to make sure that when Steve ordered a shoe, it came within 1 to 3 days, rain, snow, wind, or cold. So yeah, it was a team effort. No question.
Yeah, it really was. I think you said it. I think for creators today, we show shoes in detail, and we want to show the craftsmanship or the special, what makes this shoe special when we share content. And you guys were the OG content people. I mean, you really took it to another level. When did you realize that people weren't just using your catalog to place an order? They were looking to study. They were looking to be inspired. When did you first come to that realization?
You want to go?
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, yes, as we talked about it, before the internet, things just grew more slowly, and so we were able to see all the facets of the company. So we still went on the road to schools. We saw the kids. We were able to listen to phone calls from our phone operators when kids called in. So we really got a sense of where the kids were thinking, what they liked, what turned them on, what got them excited, what helped inspire dreams in them, who they were looking up to, and it really just step by step got more and more involved in marrying the emotions and the dreams of where these kids wanted to go with the way that the shoes came. I mean, the early shoes were, until Nike came out with Air, the early shoes were all just a foam midsole, a closed cell midsole, if that. And so the technology of the shoes grew as the kids' interest grew, as the media grew, we all just kind of came together at the right time.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable to see that evolution and how that happened over time, and to hear you reflect on it really made me think about today. So like Eastbay was about access to get product to anyone, anywhere. You guys did that, and to be a source for putting athletes first. Now it's all hype and limited drops and collaborations. Do you think something is lost today? Or how do you feel the difference?
Well, you had said this. I can't remember where we were in the book, but you had said that back then kids had to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Kids don't have to wait anymore, and that whole anticipation is gone because it's so immediate. And that was really insightful, and we've talked kind of since then. Because we've tried to stay out of the athletic industry and not try to hang around Eastbay, after we left. And but I think that's one of the big things that's different today is there isn't that anticipation. I can't wait till the first of the month to get the Eastbay catalog, or I just ordered it. I got a couple more days and it's going to be here. That's not here anymore. And I think that's one of the things that's missing.
And there's individual drops, but we talk to so many of our ex-customers now, and we realize that getting the Eastbay catalog once a month was their drop, and starting to circle everything. So
absolutely,
and it maybe meant more because you had to wait. When you said when you were young, you didn't get things in Oklahoma. But when we first started, our reps would tell us that usually the East and the West Coast get things first, and then it filters to the Midwest.
And last to northern Wisconsin.
And some of that is weather. I mean, it's tough to play baseball in January and December in Oklahoma sometimes because of the cold.
I coach baseball. You didn't get on the fields till June usually. So
so you had the coast who were generally anywhere from 1 to 6 months ahead of the middle part of the country. And I think Eastbay helped fill in that groundwork and made things available to anyone whenever they wanted it. It really put the power of shopping.
Oklahoma, Mickey Mantle from
and you do data. This would be a good question for you maybe because you do data, but it seems that the consumer has lost power as a shopper. Because the algorithms are saying this is what this person buys, when they buy, what they're like, who they like. And so what you get is a smaller slice of what's out there rather than what Eastbay did is say, here's every basketball shoe made, here's every soccer shoe made, here's every football shoe made. You, the buyer, you decide. You pull the trigger. You pick what you want. We're not trying to push a Nike. We're not trying to push an Adidas. We want you to buy what makes you feel good. And I think that's the other piece that is missing a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's where I think social media has helped a little in being able to carry the stories behind the shoes a little bit better because there's always a drop every week, but there still are gaps with it. I think the access is tough. You guys believed heavily in giving access to people. I think now it's more hyped to be, hey, the shoe's numbered. There's only a few pair, buy it now, which puts the collector in a different spot today. You almost have to be somebody elite or with money or access, special access to get some of these drops. And I think, and it's hard for young people breaking in. It's hard sometimes for them to get that access. So I think that's missing in the access to large drops I don't think anything compares to a Jordan, but even some of the more accessible athletes that have shoes today, it's not just one model either. It's multiple models, and what should I invest in? What should I not invest in? What should I wear or not wear? And it's, this is where you got to do it for the love. That's why I say I don't talk down on any kind of shoe, because each one of them, the reason I love sneaker collecting is there's a story behind the design and behind the person who's
And part of your story. It's a part of your story too. And
yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I think sneaker game is going to live through all of this. It's going through some change. I think AI is going to change it again. Going forward, and we'll see what happens. Just like you guys had to react to something new every time in your business, I think retailers are going to be challenged to figure out how to do this. But back to identity, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but
no,
yes.
But these are, you have such good ideas. This is a good conversation, because all of us grew up during the 80s and the 90s, and it was really, back then there wasn't shoe technology, and so we were the first generation to get exciting shoe technology. Now everybody knows Nike Air. Everybody knows the On cushioning system that they have. Everybody knows about the pump, but back then we didn't. And so being the first, being the early ones, that's tough, or that's tough for the younger kids today, because it's not new news that there's a Nike Air shoe out that's really cool looking, because it's been there for a lot of years. And if you can get the early ones, if you can get the first ones, that means something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something you guys said, and I can't remember which one of you guys can, one of you can.
We both lie equally good. So
you said, Eastbay changed the game. I mean, when you got a new pair of shoes, you felt faster. You felt like you could jump higher. And I'm not even talking about Jordan or anything else. It's the track shoes. I remember lots of shoes growing up, and you just felt fast. You guys, I think you tapped into that in your content, in the way that you were trying to inspire. Can you talked about your favorite cover behind you. Tell me some of the ways that you tried to inspire with some of your covers.
Well, I always think the dream big, dream often, which I think Rick was mainly behind that, was the one. And then, if you look at the cover, it's the guy here is just shooting a basketball hoop, but on the outside of it are all these people, fans watching him. Yeah. Which, for young athletes, that's how you always played. You always, it felt like you were working out by yourself, but you always say, oh, it's the last second of a game, the NCAA tournament, I'm going to make it, and that type of thing. So
yeah,
that was always in your dream. So we worked hard on trying to convey the different emotions of sports, whether it be that cover or Christmas covers or whatever.
And some of that is the way we grew up. You maybe know, when we were in high school, as Art said before, the school gave us shoes, and they weren't the great performance shoes. They were the shoes that were going to last 5 years, so they could turn around and buy a new pair of shoes. The school could buy a new set of shoes in 5 years. So these were heavy, thick, unflexible kind of shoes. And so when the company started coming out with this new technology, you really got a sense of the excitement of when you put on your first pair of shoes that you bought for yourself, and it was so different than what you had at school. It's just a feeling that you remember forever, and I think that carried both Art and I, and I think our whole team through the years of Eastbay.
So you said you bought quite a few shoes. Isn't there something about when you just get that right shoe on, you just feel right. It is just, whatever. So
you feel more confident. You
Yep.
feel, it's part of a first impression sometimes, and to people that love shoes. And so, yeah, it can make you walk into situations and feel better about those pressure moments, whether it be a business meeting or whether it be, playing in a hoop game. So I think one thing that stood out to me was how much you, as your business grew, you valued and protected your mailing list. Did you realize at the time how powerful that was? And I know, Art, you and I talked briefly about it before we started, but tell me a little bit about that, because I feel like at the end of the day, when you transitioned to Foot Locker, that became a very valuable part of your business. But did you realize it early on?
We realized the importance of the trust. When we went to schools, obviously that was one thing, the coaches, but we went to individuals. And like I was talking about earlier with you, there were no lists to send. We just sent to coaches, and then suddenly athletes would start calling, and suddenly you start doing athletes. And back then, like, parents would, they might give you their credit card number, but back then, a lot of people didn't have credit cards. They wouldn't even give their own kids a credit card number, much less some stranger they'd never met. So we realized that for us to survive, we had to be trusted. We had to be trustworthy, which luckily in northern Wisconsin, everyone, basically goes by the golden rule. You treat people the way you want to be treated. So we just made sure that everybody who ordered for us, we didn't try to upsell them something, because we were talking to young people, high school kids and players, and we didn't want their parents to think, hey, we're trying to take advantage of them. We certainly weren't going to sell their name to somebody else. So if they ordered something from Eastbay, they were going to get 100 more names, because basically we developed a list one at a time from 1 to 5 million. And we weren't going to break the trust with our customers.
And as we tried to grow the list, we got in on the black side of it too by renting. We would rent Sports Illustrated. We would rent.
Well, that wasn't until the mid 90s.
No, but we would rent it, and we saw how much better our organically grown list performed versus a list that's out there for anybody to use. And so we realized that the people that we had were buyers. They weren't lookers. They weren't shoppers. They're willing to buy if you can get them the right product at the right time with the right price. And so we knew nobody else had a 12 to 24-year-old list, because we would have tried to rent it, and it just wasn't out there.
I mean, for anybody that's younger listening to this, it's probably got to be hard to believe that you just didn't go online and put something out there and you get all these names. Or it didn't exist back then. It was one at a time, no advertising, just thanks to people like you that it grew.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
we would have been okay if we would have grown faster with a few more orders, Steve. So don't.
I'm sorry. I was tapped out at that time.
We couldn't have grown faster.
Tell me, I find it fascinating. You two decided the fate of the company in the late 90s by a coin flip. And that moment, I think you both spoke to it, but give me some thoughts, because if they haven't read the book, I want them to hear that you guys wouldn't do that if you didn't know each other so well and trust each other so well. So I think there's a lot to be said. It wasn't, hey, go out and make your decisions now with coin flips, but tell me about that moment. And you guys really wrestled with whether to, sell the business to Foot Locker. I'm
We won't say too much because we hope people will buy the book and read it, and all the proceeds go to charity, to a very good cause for kids. And so we won't say too much, but when we talked earlier in our conversation, if Art had an idea, I was 50% with him on that idea, that was the right thing to do. And if I had an idea, Art was 50% saying, yeah, I think that's what we should do. So when it got down to that, it got really tough because we both trusted each other. We both believed that the other had our back, and it was a really tough decision.
We were both good with either decision. So either way it went, we were fine with it, and it would have been fine. So.
What direction, if you'd have gone the way that Rick was leaning towards staying and not selling, and you had a number of things that you talked about that were going on at the time that were going to be business challenges, have you ever thought about how that might have worked out for you guys?
Not till now.
Did you see the Packers play last fall? We have more
Yes,
important things on our mind than worrying about that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that was that had to be excruciating for you guys.
And Rick's, one of his ideas at the time going forward was opening more stores, many stores. So when Foot Locker came around, said, well, okay, that was nice. I agreed with that idea too. And some other, great things. We were really, we wanted to make sure that Eastbay continued well. And then sometimes, like, if you have kids, sometimes you're going to have to let them go and grow up, maybe without you being behind them all the time. So it hasn't happened yet for our kids.
No,
it will soon.
By the time they're 70, 75.
Yeah. But we were trying to find out what was the best thing for Eastbay.
Yep. I felt that through the whole book. I think I want to wrap.
We hope people do, because we weren't as important as Eastbay.
We had great people.
Yeah.
And I have two questions for you guys, and the last one's probably easy for you, but this one, you mentioned all of the people behind you throughout the book, and I know you even wanted to list all of the people that worked for Eastbay. What would you like to say to all of your Eastbay associates out there?
I think they ruined our life.
And I bet you all of them know that you would say that.
I don't know that. One of the things that hit us after we sold was we both didn't know if we would want to work with anybody besides the team that we had, because to build something from nothing and to work so hard at it and to make it work so efficiently, boy, it's tough to find that big a group of people who all buy in and build a culture that lets you make mistakes, or lets you tell your boss, no, you're wrong, we got to do it this way, or bring new ideas to the table. And so it was really hard for us to even think about going and doing something else after that because of the team. And they were just, it was such that we never worked a day in our lives until once we started Eastbay. I mean,
then we just enjoyed work.
Yeah,
we were lucky.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
to everybody. They it's just amazing. There was a great team built, and everybody did so much. And I think one of our person, Polly, who's in the book, she talked about back then you played sports and you didn't get a participation trophy, and we had hired a lot of people who were athletes and everything. You played to win, and no one made you feel bad trying to play to win. And so we had people who maybe didn't know, we didn't have business people, so they were easy to think out of the box. but they were going to figure out the way that we needed to go forward. And sometimes good teammates just do that.
One quick story. Don Trebatuski was the other third person besides Art and myself who started Eastbay.
Mhm.
Don early on decided that he wanted to take a break. He wanted to see what else is out there.
Oh, he saw it wasn't going to work.
Well, that could be. He was always smart. You know, so one thing he said, you don't have to pay me back right away, because he had put some money into the business. But after he got out to California and decided to come back, he didn't raise a stink about saying, well, I was a partner, I want to be a part. He came back, he found our software, he created our shipping. He turned into an unbelievable teammate. And it's those kind of stories that just happened all the time at Eastbay. And we're so blessed. Yeah. As Polly said in the book, doers of stuff.
Yeah. Doers of stuff. Yes. I think that was Polly's official title.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. One last question here. What was your favorite shoe? It doesn't have to be a basketball, or what was your favorite shoe through all of those years?
The Air Jordan. For me, I mean, business-wise, because we had put so much money on that one product that if it didn't sell, we were gone. And it changed the business from track and field to really, when the Jordans came out and the Dunk, that's when we went to a color catalog. Talk about good timing. Yeah. But also the Jordan, it was a difference in, I think, the sneaker culture. Big difference in that. Before that, shoes were, for athletic shoes. After that, I think they became identity. Yeah. And we'd sell white and green, white and orange, everything under the sun for the team called. We had them. And after that, I think it became part of a person's identity almost. Yeah. Still to today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for you. Oh, Rick, what's your favorite shoe? Then a guy asked me.
Oh, no, my favorite shoe isn't important.
We're not going back to that.
Yeah.
The
Jordan. My favorite all-time shoe is an Etonic Eclipse trainer. Etonic's a golf shoe company, and they have now actually started coming back into running, but they got into running because everybody was getting into running. And they made a shoe called the Eclipse Trainer that was the best training shoe I've ever had. Nothing has come close except a year ago. On came out with a Pro Spec, I think it is, that felt almost like it. But it was amazing that a golf shoe company used a last that fit like that and felt like that. It was a great shoe to run in.
Steve, I have a question for you about your favorite shoe. Now, you did a podcast on a blue and gold low top shoe that I think you developed, right? Nike shoe with a backward swoosh on it.
Oh, I didn't develop it. I
think that. Okay.
You're talking about customs.
Yeah.
So, yes, for my daughter's wedding, I found a designer who took a pair of Air Jordan 1s and made with Swarovski crystals, made myself and my daughter a pair of Jordans, and we did our first dance, or the father-daughter first dance together in those sneakers. So
you are hardcore, aren't you? Good for you.
When I saw that, man, we could have sold a ton of those. That was a great shoe.
Customization for shoes has really changed as well. People have made the collaborations and the customization part of the sneaker culture is a whole different ball game that has evolved a lot since those first days.
3D printers.
Yeah, it's so exciting. What do you think of the future of athletic footwear and sneakerheads?
Right now I'm wearing a pair of the Nike Mind 2s, which are the shoes that have the sensory on the bottom of them as a recovery shoe. I think 3D printing and some of what for performance is going to be a real frontier I hope that we don't lose the craftsmanships of some of the leather and the nostalgia that comes along with it. But the fact that we may be in a time where maybe you buy a pair of shoes and print them at home, we're probably not too far away from something like that. Maybe.
Does that give you a sense that the consumer's regaining some of that buying power now, that they're more in control and making their own decisions and getting what they want?
I think so. I mean, there's even companies out there today that will allow you to design your own shoe and have it sent to your home. So I think there it's a combination of probably technology and then the ability for consumers to maybe go in and create something themselves that nobody else has. It could be a personalization angle that might be in the future, especially
Wow.
if the shoe companies keep limiting all of these drops to a few thousand pairs when millions of people would want them. I think people will then turn away and say, you know what, I can do I have options. And
Yeah.
so
Can I bring up one thing? So back in the day, we would buy Nike out of their team footwear, whatever they had left over, and a lot of them were like, might be an Air Force or that, but they'd have the player's name on the back, and we'd buy all those and then sell them. So especially at our 10 sales, we haven't come by, but
I could talk to you guys forever. Honestly,
Same here. You're good at this.
I could talk to you guys just about. There's so much I didn't get to touch on, but I feel like I got through most parts of your book. So hopefully I will do you justice.
You did a lot of it. Thank you.
When we put this content out, and I wish you guys much success with the book release coming up. I enjoyed it very much, and I think, like Charles said, I was able to get through that book in a day. I just couldn't put it down. I was watching some March Madness, and out of one corner of my eye, and I read your book, and I found myself not keeping up with the score. I would look up. I loved hearing about the people in your company. I love how humble you guys are. I think too humble, because you did some very genius things with your business that you did. You both did it, and along with some smart people behind you that you took feedback from, and that's a servant leadership kind of attitude that I feel like you both have, and it sounds like an awesome place to work. I wish.
Thank you.
I wish I could have experienced that myself. So
You're so kind,
guys, and it's so nice to meet you. It's a kind of a thrill for me when I started, when Charles first reached out, that one, I grew up, I was born in Bentonville, Arkansas, and if you don't know,
oh yeah,
Sam Walton started Walmart, and so my mom and dad grew up in this town. I lived in Tulsa